has to do with this book. Once a month we do resume tweaking, and when we were at tweaking a week or two ago, there was an HR, brand new member, HR manager who was there, and she was telling everybody that all you have to read, the only job search book you need to read is this job search book. And really, I'm going to tell you about it. I ordered a bunch of copies. I'll be giving it out. This is an old book. It was originally written in 1994. That was the first published date. Robin Ryan is the person who wrote it. And she has been on Oprah. She's been on all sorts of different shows, lots of newspapers. She's a columnist as well. She's an expert on the job search process. This is a very small, very handy little book. It concentrates on the interview process. From the time they say, tell me a little bit about yourself, to the salary negotiation. And it's got a few other things as well. The edition that they're publishing now, the latest edition, was 2008. So it's been updated a time or two. I believe that if, some of the information in here remains a little bit dated, and I'll talk to you about some of that stuff, but tons of it are right on target. Exactly what you need to say and exactly what you need to do. And she gives, in addition to the parts that we're going to talk about, there's 120 interview questions with answers. And some of that is helpful. So they're not the industry-specific, job-specific questions that are sometimes so challenging for you, but you're good at what you do, and you may not have problems with those, but it's those irritating HR questions that we all struggle with, and those are in here with suggestions for what to do. So we'll talk a little bit about those as well. And there is a section on salary negotiation that I think is helpful, but I decided that should be a presentation all unto itself, with this information on salary negotiation, also the information that I cover in my salary negotiation class that I teach, and some other stuff. So we'll have a whole hour-long presentation on salary coming up really soon. All right, so the major elements of 60 Seconds and You're Hired have to do with a 5-point agenda. And I think it's helpful when you go into an interview, you're going to create your 5 points. These are the 5 points I'm going to try to get across in this interview. And it's going to be based on the job description, it's going to be based on the needs of the company, the research that you've done, and then what you have to offer. So you should have 5 key points that you're going to be trying to make during this interview. And you're going to reiterate those points in a number of different ways. You might cover them in a tell me a little bit about yourself answer. You're going to cover them in the close of the interview process. Throughout the interview, you're going to be trying to make these connections, because these 5 points are going to be based on that job description. And so you want them to know that you are exactly the person who can ease their pain, solve their problems. So there is that. The second major element is a 60-second sell. And this is really nothing more, I think, than your elevator pitch, but it's going to be based on these 5 points. You're going to be summarizing your qualifications in these 5 areas. So most of you have a standard elevator pitch. This is nothing new. Everybody who's looking for a job should be able to quickly, concisely describe who you are and what you have to offer. That's your elevator pitch. And you might have a number of different ones. In the planning class that I teach on Monday mornings, we talk to you a little bit about elevator pitches, and I give you 5 examples. The first 3 are all the same guy. He's a truck driver. We give you a 5-second elevator pitch for this guy. We give you a 15-second elevator pitch. That elevator's going up another floor. We give you a 35-second elevator pitch. And then there's also a 90-second elevator pitch. And it's very interesting. Can you describe yourself in 5 seconds and also in 90 seconds? It's an interesting challenge to be able to talk to somebody about, here's what I can do, here's what I offer you, and kind of set it up with those restrictions and see if you can do that. So the 60-second sell is essentially a 1-minute elevator pitch, but in each one, it's going to be a slight bit different because you're going to be trying to incorporate those 5 key points. So we'll talk about that. Then there are 120 interview questions and answers, and it also has a separate section with typical questions that are asked of recent graduates. So those of you who have young people in your family who are in that situation, some of you may be recent graduates, and those questions are different. And so, so at any rate, there's that incorporated in this book. I'm sure that the library also probably has this book because it was published so long ago. So you can probably pick this up there if you want. No need to spend any money. And then 37 questions that you should ask. I don't know, these are kind of standard questions that you should ask employers. When you go into an interview, you should always have a list of questions that you want to ask. And I think that the best questions are questions that are based on your research. So you've researched this company and you say things like, I noticed that you've recently divested yourself of company A, B, and C. Does this mean that you're going in another direction, more toward consumer goods or whatever? Those, I think, are the most salient questions, and they show that you really have done some research and you're interested in more than just your salary or your little job. You want to know about the whole strategic plan and direction of the company. So I think those are the best. I've seen people who have gotten jobs because of the intelligent questions that they asked. You should always have some questions prepared ahead of time. So I did print up the 37 questions. Actually, I didn't include some of them because I thought they were stupid or bad. But I printed up most of the 37 questions. And Gordon, sure, Keith, that would be nice. So anyway, so you don't have to look those up, you have them. And then this whole salary negotiation part. So that pretty much takes up this little bitty book. The 5-point agenda, based on your strengths and background that relate specifically to that job posting and what you know about the needs of the company. If you've been able to talk to somebody through LinkedIn or whatever, I always encourage you to do a LinkedIn search. See if you can find, perhaps you'd be lucky enough to find on LinkedIn, do an advanced search for somebody who had that job with that company in the past. I would not try to talk to somebody that's got that job now. They may be on your interview panel, it's too intrusive, but if you can find somebody that worked at that company recently, reach out to them and see if they can talk to you a little bit about the culture of that department, what are the pain points of that department and so forth. That might give you some insight as to where the company's going, what are the pros and cons. Glassdoor, always interview company or research companies on Glassdoor as well before you interview with them. That can sometimes reveal some good things and some bad things. They give you pros and cons. They talk to you also in Glassdoor about the interview process. Sometimes they'll give you the kinds of questions they ask. But all of that can help you create your 5 points. So then they give you in this little book 3 actual examples. One's a financial analyst, one is event planner, and one is something else that I can't remember. But I've copied down the first one. So the first one, this is a CFO, and this is the job that they're trying to fill. And I didn't put down all of the details, but what you need to know is that, and I've put a few things in italics, this is a rapidly growing international company that is looking for somebody with financial and operational management background. So it's twofold. And so these are the 5 points that this person has come up with from their background that relate to that job posting. 15 years experience in senior financial management of international business startups, expansions, and turnarounds. So they've got exactly, it sounds like, the kind of background they're looking for. One particular achievement, they have achieved corporate profitability goals at least 5, at the last 5 positions that they held, and exceeded the goals in 4 of those. They took a startup. So we started with the generic, 15 years experience doing this kind of work. Then we got a specific, they achieved their goals and exceeded them in 4 out of the last 5 years. And now we have a very specific, took a specific startup from 0 to 38 million in 18 months. So that demonstrates their financial expertise, but they also wanted somebody to be in charge of operation management. And so operations, they hired more than 3,500 employees and were able to create from those 3,500 people some very successful interdisciplinary teams of people. So there was that. And then in addition, they didn't see this in the job description, but threw it in thinking that this might be a value added. This person also has a great deal of technical acumen, IT systems expertise in hardware, software, and network conversion. So decided that everybody needs somebody who's got this additional technical foundation. So threw that in as well. So those are the 5 agenda items. Those are the things they're going to try to be getting across in the first answer, in the close, and throughout the interview. So then once you've identified your 5 key points that you're going to try to make, then you create an elevator pitch that is going to perhaps encompass all of those and perhaps encompass just the big generic ones with some little teasers about the details of the others. So you want an elevator pitch that summarizes your 5-point agenda and is particularly effective to include that at the beginning and at the end of your interview. So a 60-second cell closing. I use this in my interview class as a way to close the interview. There are numbers of ways, there are a lot of different ways you can close the interview. One is by saying, now that you know a little bit more about my background, do you have any concerns about my ability to be successful in this role? And you're trying to uncover whatever problems they might have with you. Now, if one of their concerns is the fact that they think you're too old for the job, they won't tell you that. If they think you're obnoxious, they won't tell you that. You smell bad, they're not going to tell you that. They don't want to have a big argument. But very often, people will actually say, I like you, you're talented, but we were hoping to find somebody with a little bit more supervisory background, or something like that, where they really will give you something that you can work on. And at that point, you need to jump in there and counter that. Another kind of close lends itself better to the 60-second cell. And that is where you express interest in the position, enthusiasm for the position, and you summarize, let me just remind you what I bring to the table. I've witnessed a close like this some years ago when I was selected to be on a panel of 9 people that interviewed finalists for my boss's position. And so just imagine you go into an interview, there are 9 interrogators, 3 observers, and they're asking you questions for hours. Most of you have come from, or many of you have come from the high-tech world where they don't really do it that way. You have like 45 minutes to an hour with one person, and you're walking around and you're drinking coffee and they're showing you the lab, and it's a conversation, and you're relating to one person at a time, maybe 2, but not an interrogation panel of 12 people. It's not that way. But anyway, that's what we did. I mean, you go to work for the state, it's no picnic. But at any rate, so we interrogated this guy for a long time. I thought I'd give you a chance to swivel in your chairs. Or do this neck thing. Okay. So this particular guy who had been so great, he did end up getting the job. He had just interviewed beautifully throughout the entire interrogation sequence. And we got to the end, and the consultant who was in charge of the process asked one last question and said, is there anything you would like to add? Perhaps something that we hadn't asked you that you feel would help us make a decision in your favor. And I do remember thinking, what could we not have asked him at this point after all of this time? And he gave what I thought was just kind of a brilliant answer, and it was the 60-second cell. And he said, let me just say that I believe I have a unique combination of skills that makes me the very best person for this job at this time. I bring strong academic credentials with my PhD, my experience teaching at the university level. He said I have a strong public sector experience. I know every program you have here, which ones are revenue generating, which ones are not. I bring strong private sector experience. I've been an employer. I know what employers look to this agency to provide. I have a great deal of technical acumen, especially in the analytics software that you use here to gather your data. And I have been involved before with companies that were going through mergers, and there is a certain amount of healing required, and I know how to facilitate that process. I have enjoyed this interview immensely. I thank you all for your time. I know you are very busy people, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. I shook all of our hands. He was out the door, and we all said, wow! He is the best qualified person for this job at this time. He didn't offer up anything new. All of that had been information that we had discussed within the last couple of hours, but he just summarized it. Let me just remind you, this is what I bring to the table. This. He itemized it. It made it easy to take notes. It made it easy for us to wrap our minds around what he had to offer. And we all talked about that closing, how impressive it was. Now, you can do both. You can do the 60-second sell, and you can say, so I feel that I have everything you're looking for. Now that you've learned more about my background, do you have any concerns about my ability to be successful in this role? So he could have done that, but he didn't. And it was fine. Sometimes you want to know if there's a problem, and sometimes you don't. But at any rate, we all talked about that and how impressive it was. Another thing that they say in this book is that none of your answers should be more than 60 seconds. That most of us have pretty much a 60-second attention span. And when your answers go on longer than that, you've lost us. And now we're planning our weekend, you know, and we're on our phones, and our eyes are glazing over, and we don't really catch what you're saying. And the repetition of reminding people, I have this ability, and this ability, and I believe those are things you're looking for. Let me give you a little bit more detail about those things. And so then you've got a story to support it. Then you've got, you know, you can flesh that out, the thought process that went into having that success. But plan your answers in short increments so that if they want to know more, they can drill down. And they can say, well, let's talk a little bit about the details. What led up to that great success? What were the actions that you took, or whatever? So try to keep your answers contained in 60 seconds. I wanted to read to you the actual 60-second spiel for that chief financial officer. So you saw the 5 agenda items. And then how do you wrap those all into your 60-second sell? So here's what they have in here. I have 15 years experience in senior financial management, directing business expansions, startups, and turnarounds in the international arena. In my last 3 positions, I achieved corporate profitability goals and exceeded goals in 4 of those situations. For example, I took a startup manufacturer from 0 to $38 million in just 18 months. I base my success on 2 primary abilities. The first is my ability to hire excellent people and build a cohesive, productive team. The second is my information technology systems expertise, which enables me to create a network system to keep us quick and efficient. In terms of personnel, I've hired more than 3,500 employees and, using job accountability and training, achieved highly productive bottom-line results. I've utilized my computer expertise to select hardware, software, and transportation, distribution, and accounting systems to analyze and streamline costs and put into place the most effective safeguards and systems that will maximize profits. I've always produced measurable bottom-line results and feel that I would produce the same for you. Would you like more information about any of those achievements? So he tied it all together. It made it pretty easy to create the overall statement based on the individual 5 components. And then you can always end by saying, can I give you some more information about any of that? And we've got the same for event planner, and the last one was for engineer. Anybody want to hear any of the rest of them, the engineer or any of those? Okay. The 5 points for the engineer are, point number 1, implemented new 4-year quality assurance program that received a national quality award. Oh, I should tell you that here's the job. The job was this major automotive manufacturer required experience in both quality assurance and new product design. So those are the 2 skills. The 5-point agenda. Point 1, implemented new 4-year quality assurance program that received a National Quality 1 award. Number 2, effectively dealt with employee resistance to quality improvements. Can you imagine? Number 3, conducted on-site inspections of 37 suppliers to improve the quality of parts received. Number 4, 5 years design engineering experience. Number 5, excellent communication skills when working with both technical and non-technical staff. So that 5th one was something they threw in. All right, so those are the 5 points. Here's the 60-second cell. When interviewing with the major automotive manufacturer, the cell went something like this, I'm sorry. For my last employer, I implemented a new quality assurance program for 7 plants over a 4-year period. We received the Q1 award for our efforts. Along the way, I've learned to effectively deal with employee resistance to quality improvements through training, selling teamwork concepts, and utilizing a personal empowerment approach. I have evaluated 37 suppliers during on-site inspections to improve the quality of their product, parts that will ultimately become pieces of my company's final product. My 5 years in design engineering and my strong communication skills have aided me in my ability to work with a diverse population and solve technical problems. These are the reasons I feel I would make a valuable contribution to your company. Would you like more information about any of those? So it makes it a little bit easier, I think, to plan as to what is your presentation going to consist of. And it's all based, of course, on their needs. And identifying the pain points, talking a little bit about those, coming up with little nuggets of achievements so that they can say, tell me more about this. How exactly did you manage that? So in that way, yes, Pat?
I have a question. Does it give any advice about how to address a mixed audience as far as people with maybe slightly different and conflicting agendas, perhaps?
It does not that I recognize, that I can remember. Obviously, these days, lots of times you'll have maybe a panel of people that consists of a technical person and a sales and marketing person and a very high-level strategic planner kind of person who's trying to figure out where you would best fit in the whole scope of things. And then sometimes you've even got an HR person in there on that panel.
Well, even simple, cats and cat herders, and they're in the same group, and they have different,
What did you say?
Cats and cat herders.
Oh, cats. I thought you said cats and catheters. And I thought, that is diverse. That veterinary thing.
Address the other one, that's okay.
That would have to be a vet hospital for cats and catheters. Okay, cats and cat herders. Okay. It does not do that, but if your overall thing, if you know who's going to be on your interview panel, which of course is one of the questions you should always find out, who's going to be on the interview panel, and then you can kind of plan for that perhaps. And then if your overall presentation is more generic, and then I don't know, then see if you can say, I'd be happy to go into more detail on exactly how that took place, how that success was achieved, both the interpersonal steps that we took, as well as the technical steps that we took, if that would be of interest to anybody. Or something, I don't know, maybe you can kind of address that. I understand this is a diverse group here, and not all of you are going to be interested in the same things, but we were very successful in getting this project from point A to point B. Would any of you like more specific information about how that was achieved? I don't know. I think it's a good idea to address initially. I understand how different you all are and that you each have your own unique agenda. So how can I answer your specific questions? Maybe that would be a way to do it. I don't know. Any comments on this process? Do you think that it's going to make it be a little bit easier for you to perhaps plan? When we do I can't remember if we're going to be doing the salary negotiation or the salary piece next week or further on down the line. We also have a speaker who wants to speak about negotiation, and so maybe we'll combine that all together. But the questions, the individual questions, anybody want to hear a few of those?
Sure.
All right. Okay. Maybe I'll ask you a question and then get one of you to answer it, and then we'll talk about the answer that they give. Let me see if I can find one that would work for that. Okay. Here's an easy one. Give me an example of a time you had to deal with criticism from your boss. Another way that's frequently phrased is, tell me something that you were told to improve during a performance evaluation, or something like that. So how do you give me an example of a time when you were criticized by your boss, and then what were the steps you took at that point? Did you walk out? Was that the last time you had an interaction with that boss? All right, so who would like to answer that? Tell me about a time when you were criticized by your boss. Mr. McElroy, would you please come up and speak into the... Ken McElroy, a leader of the South Austin Clublet, member of the AV team, industrial engineer, mechanical engineer? Manufacturing engineer, most recently with DJO Surgical. I give you Ken McElroy.
I was working for Outboard Marine Corporation, made Johnson & Evinrude motors, and even though I had spent numerous summers on the lake in boating projects for environmental projects, my boss said I didn't have enough experience with outboard motors. So the next weekend I took out a 2 horsepower motor. Next weekend I took out a 4 horsepower motor, worked my way all the way up through all of the horsepowers we had, including 300 horsepower, every weekend, taking my son out with me and all like that. He got his Coast Guard license while we were doing this, and I got all the way up through outboards, and they transferred me to stern drives. So I started the same thing in stern drives. I didn't have a car big enough to carry them. They loaned me the company truck. I had the keys to the boathouse, which we had our private ramp on several of the lakes. You know, wonderful. You know, any size boat I wanted, any size motor I wanted. Went in for the next interview. He couldn't say anything but praise for what I had done.
Took the initiative to solve that problem. That's a great story. I remember we asked that, we do mock interviewing at the Workforce Solutions office on Thursdays, and I remember we asked a member of the CHIP Clublet, Frank Scamato. He's also somebody I tell you, model your LinkedIn profile after his, because it was a very successful one. But anyway, in mock interview practice, I asked Frank, tell me something that you were told to improve during a performance evaluation. And he said, oh yeah, one time they told me that I needed to improve my time management skills. He said I was working too much overtime and I wasn't producing enough when I was there. And so I said, so what did you do? These were the steps I took. He said, I read a bunch of books on time management, and I carved out some time. I think he said I carved out some time each day when I was not to be disturbed. And I answered my phone messages. I answered the most important of my email messages. I made sure that I always had an agenda of things that I had to accomplish each day, at least one action item. I made sure that I took care of that during those times. And then I said, so did anybody notice? And he said, absolutely. The next time I had a performance evaluation, all of that was taken into consideration, and I got an exceeds expectations or whatever. So there was that. We also, I can remember a person, I don't remember her name. She used to be an HR manager at Freescale. And then she was also at Dell, and then she went back to Freescale. But I asked her that same question, and she said, she was really fun and very personable, and she said, I do remember a time when I was criticized, and she said, I have to tell you that I was pretty irritated by it because I thought it was bogus. And she said, I got criticized for sending too many emails to my boss. And she said, and I'm sure that she noticed that, that I had a look at that point because I purposely, I knew she didn't like emails. And I purposely tried not to send her too many. And so the fact that she said I was still sending her too many, that was really irritating. But she said, but then I thought, I know what this is about. I'll bet you her preferred method of communication is phone. She really just wants me to pick up the phone and talk to her and not clog up her inbox and send her things that she's going to miss. And so she said, so I started doing that. And every time I would talk to her on the phone, I would say, now, do you want me to follow this up with an email so that you have this in writing, or would you rather not? And she said, and I did whatever she told me to do. And that solved that problem. So there was that. So now I'll read you what they say in here. No one likes to be criticized. The truth is, most of us get a little hurt, maybe angry, definitely defensive. To answer this question, it's best to point out an idea that was criticized or work that you went on to correct and improve. Be careful. Your answer can cause the interviewer to question your ability to do their job. You could give an example such as, well, I remember a time in a previous job when I was a new, younger staffer in a meeting of all the store department managers. We discussed increasing the company's sales among our younger customers. My idea was to advertise in a certain magazine. I was heavily criticized by 2 other department heads. I kept cool and restated my reasons, which were clear to me, but not to them. After the meeting, I wrote out the idea, investigated and noted some of our own market research that supported my suggestion. I sent it along to the sales manager. Months passed, and a competitor used my idea as part of their advertising campaign with great success. My boss and the sales manager both reevaluated my input then, and I believe I gained more respect from the department heads for my creative ideas after that. So if you select an example about your works needing improvement, demonstrate the steps you took to correct the situation, and show the ultimate outcome. So at any rate, it goes on like that, sort of generically about when they ask you this is what they're looking for, and this might be a way for you to frame your answer successfully. Anyway, it goes on like that. So the 120 questions kind of give extensive suggestions for answers. So that's kind of how that goes. But I hope that you'll think a little bit about it and review the 37. Do not ask 37 questions, but there might be some that you feel would be useful for you to try, and then we'll do the salary negotiation at a later time.